let's get into the Detroit Lions, as my dad would say. So I'm not a homer here, but I've always liked the Lions. My dad's from Detroit. I've seen him burn many jerseys on Thanksgiving. So this is something that happens. But 6-10 in 2020, they took a step back, or no, they weren't 6-10. They had a lot of losses. Never mind. This is bad stats. Someone's feeding me. 3-13-1 last year. They did pull off that tie, which saved them a bit. No, I was talking about 2020. Jordan. Let's just blame Jordan. But anyway, so free agency, little light. We'll get onto the offense a little bit because the defense wasn't no big names. Their biggest acquisition via free agency was DJ Chark. Paid the man a little bit of money. I think we'll get into that in a bit, but I think he deserved it, at least a little bit of it. So, and then in the draft, their two biggest notable draft picks were Jameson Williams and Aiden Hutchinson. Looking forward to this team. My man Dan is just a beast as a coach, and I think that this team's going to turn into a way better thing in the future. It's not great right now, but I think it will get better. Personally, I think this is the best offense they've had since Calvin played the game. And no, I'm not comparing anyone to Calvin Johnson because Calvin Johnson is his own. So let's, without further ado, let's get into this offense. We got Jared Goff, currently QB 26, so pretty much going undrafted. I think it's a pretty accurate estimate here. Could be an interesting stash late with this kind of rebuilt wide receiver core. I personally say don't let him sit in free agency. If you have the bench space for a QB3, I would not be upset about having Jared Goff on my team. I know some redraft leagues, Jared Goff or the bench can be a little low. So, but I don't think he should be just sitting there. And I think, yes, he probably will be replaced next year, but we're talking about redraft. So, and I think he's going to fight to show that he is needed somewhere. So they did set him up pretty nicely. Wide receiver room, don't question it. Swift's top 10 running back. No, we have not seen a full season of Swift yet. Last year, 1,000 total yards and 7 touchdowns in 13 games. He is running back 9 right now, and I think he deserves every bit of that. And that's not just PPR. This man can ball, and these 1,000 total yards could turn into 2,000 total yards real quick. I think what we're going to see here, especially when we see that full season, is it's going to be very similar to an Eckler's past few seasons. And no, I'm not talking about it could be that big one, but it could be, more in that top 8 range, top 6 range. I think you're getting what you pay for here, even in those weeks you play that he, before he's injured, if he does get injured again. I think this guy, talent shines no matter what. So take him, get him. You want him on your team. Jamal Williams, on the other hand, one of the most important backups who gets undershadowed. Him and Herbert, I think, are right in the same ballpark, but I think people know Herbert more. Jamal Williams has gotten 700 yards in every season. I think one year he had like 690. I'm rounding up. As a backup, he's never truly been a starter. He did have a couple years where the guy got injured and he kind of came in and played 4 or 5 games. But I think he can be valuable as anyone's 4th or 5th running back. I get it. It's the Lions. You're not sure about it, but if Swift does go down, or even if he doesn't, he's going to play a good complementary game. There might be a game where they're playing an easy run defense, so fire him up. You got a couple bye week situations. So I just don't think you just have to handcuff Jamal Williams. You don't only need him if you have Swift. So just keep that in mind. And then the wide receiver room, super interesting receiver room. I'm excited about a lot of these guys here. So there isn't a whole lot of targets to go around, though, but I think that there's some exciting mid to late picks. And once again, just wild that they have a wide receiver room. So there's some depth here. I'm liking some of these guys. Let's kind of do it in a weird order because that's how I have it listed. So DJ Chark, wide receiver 56. Chark was injured last year. He had about 3-4 games I think he played. But in 2020, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns on the Jaguars, the bad Jaguars. And then the year before, he had a breakout with 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. So it's really easy to forget how productive he was just a few years ago. But do not forget that Chark is a good wide receiver just because there's other talent on this team. Because I feel like he's going to get overshadowed by the next 2 people I'm talking about. And, of course, I'm talking about Jameson. Sorry. Go ahead. No, you're good. Sorry, I can take it.
Even last year, he had 2 double-digit games before he got hurt. No, you're good. Yeah. Just saying, before he got hurt last season, he did have 2 double-digit games, so it wasn't like he was, completely useless. I will say the first game that he played, he did have 12 targets and only 3 receptions. But, Trevor Lawrence was learning.
He was on the Jaguars, man. I'm just saying, I actually made a mistake of dropping DJ Chark after his rookie year because I didn't think it was happening. And I watched him do that 1,000 yards, and it was rough. So don't be like me. Just keep an eye on him. And honestly, wide receiver 56, he's going in like as the 100th pick, basically. You're talking about your 10th round. You can't bear to get a DJ Chark on your team. I'm getting him. So anyway, going 6 picks later, Jameson Williams, who might be missing some games here. We're not really sure where he's going to be at, but he obviously tore his ACL in the championship game. 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns after transferring to Alabama. I'm thinking this guy has a shot to be the best wide receiver this team's had since Calvin. Once again, not saying that he is Calvin. Nobody's Calvin. I just think that this guy has serious potential.
Best since Calvin? He is going to be the best since Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had the best rookie season in Lions history last season.
And that's what I'm trying to say is I think he's the best since Calvin. Amon-Ra is a great slot receiver. I think Jameson Williams is going to have a lot of deep balls. The combination of the two of them are going to be great for years to come, which I was going to get to, but I'll just to calm you down for a second. We'll get back to this. Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra are going to be here. They're going to be a great 1-2, probably going to be a top duo of wide receivers in the league for years to come, especially next year when they inevitably draft Goff's replacement and can dump some of that cap. So yeah, don't worry. He's gonna get his due. I'm putting him off till later for a second. We'll get to Amon-Ra. But at wide receiver 63, Jameson Williams is a steal. And if he does anything like he did last year in college, and I don't think he's going to miss that many games. There's a chance he goes on the PUP list, but I personally think it's been a pretty decent chunk of time. So he might not be ready to be fully unleashed right away, but I think he'll be ready in week 1, week 2, just to at least get out there on the field again. So, and then of course, the best wide receiver on their team right now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 90 catches, 900 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to have those 9-10 catches a game now that there actually is a wide receiver room. But he still does have that capability to come out strong, especially with Jameson probably out for a week or two. I personally don't really like or dislike his ADP. He's at wide receiver 34. The people he's going around is really nice, but at the same time, it seems a bit early for a guy who had 1 year and has talent around him now. Like I want to see what, and then just Goff in general, that there's just that risk with him being the quarterback, but the value is there. So his ADP is probably right about spot on, but I'm not reaching for Amon-Ra, if you get what I'm saying. I know you'll have something to say about this, but Quintez Cephas, not really relevant in any league except for Dynasty at the moment, but you should swoop him up. He's pretty much free at the moment. There's talks about him being traded, I think, to the Cowboys, but that might be camp news. He did have an unfortunate injury after a hot start. So there is a chance that they just keep him as the 4th guy, and especially if Jameson isn't ready to go, but just keep an eye on that guy. And then getting into tight end, TJ Hockenson, tight end 8. I like him as a sleeper tight end. He's never really fully lived up to his draft stock. It's kind of a Noah Fant, in my opinion. But he did have a 700-yard campaign in 2020. So once again, the wide receiver room and actually being talent on the team, there won't be as much double coverage. So he should be able to get some decent targets. I don't know how this target share is going to go. So in my eyes, I like the low end guys here, like Jameson Williams, maybe Hockenson, and Chark, because I don't know how this room's going to shape up. But spending a 5th round pick on Amon-Ra, it's a little scary to me. That's my thing. And I know he's talented. I know he's good, but like until next year comes when they have a quarterback that I trust enough to get him the ball, a little worried.
I agree. I think Jared Goff. I just think Jared Goff loves slot receivers, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is the best one that he has on the team.
I 100% agree with you, Bill. I'm saying for ADP purposes, I'm going after them Williams and Chark. I think Chark's going to be basically free, especially once the news ramps up about Williams, which is going to be phenomenal. So, but we'll see what we got here, once the season comes. Getting into the defense, it's not super exciting. There is some names to monitor. Linebacker room, Alex Anzalone had 77 tackles last year. There's some potential to get to 100 because there's just not a whole lot of linebackers. Kind of like him as a late pick. The defensive line situation Adrian Hutchinson does have a really good chance to walk right in, and I think he's the most highly touted edge rusher in the draft, other than Trayvon Walker for some reason. So I don't think it's really a stellar pick this year, and he's probably going to go too high just because he's the best defensive line. But I like him for 8 sacks or so, and I think he's going to be an integral role for years to come. So maybe this is a keeper league that you're in, or dynasty. Yeah, absolutely go after him. Redraft, I'd watch where his ADP goes. If there should be some options that are sitting there that people won't be thinking about. And I actually like Okwara this year. Romeo, that is. There's 2 of the brothers on the team. He's a year removed from 10 sacks, and now that there's a running mate on the other side in Hutchinson, I think that he could have a pretty good year and could be an interesting speculative late ad. So keep an eye on him. And then the defensive backs, corners are pretty much trash, so I don't think you're getting much talent here. But Deshon, Elliot, and Tracey Walker are both stellar safeties. They're not like your top 5 or anything. I think you can get them pretty late. Tracey Walker was switched back to free safety in his rightful spot, that is, and got his 100 tackles again after kind of a 80 tackle 2020 campaign. So interceptions and sacks aren't very high, but he does have a nice floor as IDP goes. And Deshon Elliott, coming off injury, he did have 80 tackles, a couple sacks, and forced fumbles a couple seasons ago at the Ravens. So always interested in safety depth, and these guys are pretty cheap as safeties go or defensive backs go. So keep an eye on them. I always love grabbing defensive backs on teams that get the ball just pounded down.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Anyone I miss? I mean, I know there's some young talent there.
I mean, Charles Harris is kind of a late guy that I might add just in case. He had a couple of splash weeks last season. Not anybody I would try to ramp up. I think you're slightly wrong about Aiden Hutchinson, because I think this is like Dan Campbell's, like if Dan Campbell was to design a defensive player in the lab, it would come out looking like Aiden Hutchinson. And so I think like he's going to try to use him early and often. And I think they're really going to try to prove why they took him as the second pick in the draft. And I think that they may even try to use him. So I think just for that potential home run swing, I think he's a good player to put on your team, because I think that they might try to justify him being the number 2 pick.
Dan Campbell is a man, and he's a dog. He loves going after. Campbell. Yeah, this man loves to go after quarterbacks. So I think you might be right. I just didn't want to get anyone too hyped up. I know he's going to be great in years to come. I think next year he's going to be with the Bosas and the Watts up there at the top of the top 10 picks and stuff, because he does have that option. I don't want to get anyone too excited and think he's going to go for 15 sacks in his rookie year.
You're right about that. I mean, do I think the ceiling is double-digit sacks? Yes. Like if he ended up with 13 sacks at the end of the season, I wouldn't even be shocked. I potentially could see him even having like a multi-sack game or 2 here and there within the season. But yeah, you're right. I don't know, man. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'll probably have him on my team. I'll probably draft him way too high.
Dan Campbell's trying to keep his job for next year, because I think next year is when the Lions actually turn into a good team. I feel like I've said that many times to my dad, and I keep trying to tell him and keep trying to keep hope alive here. But Dan Campbell, man was crying on the sidelines when they lost games. Like, this man cares. So
crying when they won games.
He was crying when they won games. He's just an emotional man. He has a defensive attitude. So I think that there is some options here. And once they dump that salary of Goff, I think they can actually make some splashy free agent moves. And I think people will want to be on this team after this year. I don't think they're going to go out here and light up 10 games this year, but I think that they do have a chance to fantasy points for one, but not to mention just put on a show for the fans. And the fans have been missing that for a few years. So longer than that probably, but.
Okay. All right. I like this team a lot. I'm just going to say it. I like what they're doing. I like what they're building.
This is what the Bears tried to do with their wide receiver room. It just didn't work out as well.
Yeah, not quite. Anyway,
all right.
Lions over under is 6.5.
I'm just not even looking at the schedule. I think they can do it, but I'm not super excited. So I start off with my Birds, Eagles, week 1. Then they go to the Commanders, or they actually come home to the Commanders. Vikings, Seahawks, Patriots, Cowboys, Dolphins, Packers, Bears, Giants, Bills, Jaguars, Vikings, Jets, Panthers, Bears, Packers. I think they can do it.
So here's the thing. Do you want the biggest offseason hot take I have?
I want it. Get it.
This is a 10 or 11 win team.
All right, let's walk through the schedule.
Team right here is 10 or 11 effing wins. And if there's a bet out there for double-digit wins for any team, I am betting the Lions heavy AF. Look at their losses last year. They were so close to beating good teams last year that this year those coin flips are going to go in their favor a little bit more. And I just all right, let's walk through the schedule.
Let's walk through it. We're missing Joe anyway, so we can eat up a couple minutes. Sorry, listeners, if you're really done with the Lions, but we're gonna eat this up a little bit more. So we got the Birds, Eagles.
I think that's a loss.
I think they're gonna come out hot, and it's gonna be a good game. I think me and my dad might have to watch that game together, but I'll be at B-Dubs, so
I don't think it'll be week 1.
Yeah. So Commanders can win that game.
That's a dub.
Vikings, I think this is going to be.
I think they lose the first one.
They probably lose one of them. I say they give them one. So let's give them 2, and we'll skip the next Vikings.
It's the first one.
Okay.
If they lose.
Okay. And then they play the Seahawks, who don't have a quarterback.
Win.
And then they play the Patriots, who are misled. Cowboys probably beat them.
Win.
You going to take them over the Cowboys? All right, that's fine. All right. And then
Is that at home or in
No,
Dallas?
It's in Dallas.
I still think it's a win. I don't care.
Okay. Then they play at home against the Dolphins.
Probably lose that one.
And then they play the Packers at home.
They lose the first one.
Okay. So give them another win for the second one.
Okay.
Bears.
I forgot the other one. That's a win.
Bears should take them. Giants should be a gimme. I mean, they could lose these games, but then we got the Bills. So I'm going to go ahead and give them the L. Don't even get excited.
That's a no.
Jaguars.
Win.
Then here's the next Vikings game, so don't count one. Then they play the Jets.
Win.
Then they play the Panthers.
Win.
Then they play the Bears.
Win.
And then they're on to the Packers. That's their last game.
And they won that. They would win the second one, but I've already added that one.
So that's 12.
That's 12. And they're gonna screw up one of them. Like I'm not saying that they're not gonna screw up one or two of them.
Let's take away maybe a Green Bay one.
Give away the Cowboys and say they get swept by the Packers. That's still 10 wins.
They have the Jets, Giants. They have the worst
Jaguars. Like
they don't have Houston.
They have the Bears, which is an easy couple of wins. Like Seahawks.
I think those are going to be some gritty games. Which one's the
Panthers?
Game?
Panthers are going to be a disaster by that time because they're going to be screaming for Baker Mayfield's head. Like that's going to be a nasty disaster.
I'm glad they could keep their tradition alive of losing on Thanksgiving. They play the Bills on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's a hard L.
Oh man,
this team is way too talented not to be able to flip the games. And they get Jameson Williams back, even if he misses 6 games on the pup, to get him back for that back half of the season. That's going to be an injection into their arm of exactly the talent they need to carry this team on. Now, injuries could derail everything, but going into the season, based on what I'm seeing here, Jared Goff could lead this team to 10 wins. It's not out of the question.
Jared Goff is fighting for a job right now. Not in the Lions. I think he's gone off the Lions regardless. I think they can figure out a way to get a new quarterback, but Goff is going to try to get a new contract somewhere, at least as a backup quarterback, preferably as a starter. So they did set him up for a positive win situation here, which honestly, they didn't even do this for Stafford. So this is one of the better receiver rooms they've had since really Megatron.
You know what this is? This is when the 49ers got Garoppolo and they had those good couple years. And then they eventually were like last year, we're just like, hey, we probably should get a young pup in here to try to, this is that. They're like, we're here. Jared Goff is Garoppolo in this situation. And next year they're going to draft their Trey Lance and they're going to be off and running because this team's wildly talented.
No. All right, man. I'm glad we're on the same page. So we're both going under.
I'm just saying
over, obviously.
Way over. And I'm telling you all out there, if there's a double-digit win bet for any team, this is the one. This is the one where you're going to make your money because Vegas is way undervaluing the Lions right now. And I get it. It's the Lions, but still, this team's good. They're really good. I just
think this is I wouldn't say it's basically the Browns resurgence. They've been bad for so long. This is when they come back and they prove they're a team again.
Literally. I think that's true.
I'm not going as far as to say as what Billy's going with, but I think that this is at least an 8-win team. I'm going to smash.
Hey, we talked through that schedule. You heard at least
it seems great.
11 or 12 wins in
you
there.
gave a couple of them. The Vikings they could lose to. The Packers they could get swept.
I say they're splitting. They're splitting the Vikings, splitting the Packers. I don't think they lose both of them. They beat the Packers last year. Now were the Packers trying? I don't know. We don't want to put that out there, but